Syntell Smith here, and we're talking about call numbers. Alright, we got more chapter commentary, and this video we're on is about chapter 2, First Impressions. Robin arrives at 58th Street, and his supervisor questions his identity. This scene verbatim was how I was received when I first arrived at 58th Street myself. I was asked for my ID when my college ID wasn't enough. They wanted my actual birth certificate. And when I asked who walks around with their birth certificates on them, my supervisor actually pulled out hers from her purse. It freaked me out then, and it still does to this day. The gender title typo was real, as I mentioned earlier, and when I was coming up with character names for the character based on me, I needed a unisex name. Robin was a great choice. People either think of the comedian Robin Williams or the actress Robin Givens. As Robin gets acquainted, we shift the story from him and introduce one of the library pages, Janelle Sims, and her dilemma. With Robin taking a position that was promised to the page, we see a key dramatic point that leads to the branch turning on him. This was all made up for dramatic effect. In reality, a page was expected to be promoted at 58th Street, but then showed no interest and eventually quit to focus on college, so I didn't take nobody's position originally. After Janelle's introduction, we moved on to another great scene involving Jerry's interaction with a patron who was too cheap to pay a late fine. This was pretty much fan service for any library clerk who's dealt with patrons like this. So with Jerry embarrassing the patron, it was very humorous to write. Jerry has a reputation as a troublemaker, but he befriends Robin with a fun exchange of guessing Dewey Decimal numbers to explain his experience. This was a game pages actually did while working at the library so they could help learn all the call numbers of non-fiction books they had to shelve. The chapter ends as Robin is on his way to meet Augustus and Zelda. As he's being led by Sonyai, he spots the three other pages as they have a private conversation about him, showing their concerns for their co-worker Janelle. One of them seems to be a little fixated on the newcomer, which we'll go over later. This video selection, I'll be reading Jerry's scene with the patron, as it's one of my favorite in the chapter. Back inside the library, Jerry was working on the return side, accepting back 3 borrowed books from a middle-aged Caucasian woman. She was wearing a mink stole, fur jacket, accessorized with expensive jewelry. Okay, ma'am, 3 books returned 5 days late at 15 cents a day comes to a fine of $2.25, please. The woman nodded. Ah, yes, well, she stammered. I wish to waive the fine. Jerry tilted his head, believing he misheard the woman, despite her speaking clearly. Excuse me, could you repeat that? I wish the late fines to be waived, she replied calmly. Being a public servant and an NYPL employee for a decade, Jerry had heard many unreasonable requests from people, but he decided to play along. And what would be the particular reason, may I ask, that you cannot pay these late fines at this particular time? I have no money at the moment. Jerry fought to restrain himself at the absurdity of the situation. Remember your lessons at the last public relations seminar, he thought. If that's the case, he began, I could leave the fines unpaid on your record and you may pay them at another time. You can even check out more books since the balance is less than $5. In a perfect world, that would be the end of the conversation. She would smile, nod, then accept that she could still take out books and deal with the penalty at a later date. When dealing with wealthy individuals, Jerry noticed, consequences are viewed in a different light than normal people, and it was best to stay non-confrontational. No, 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 you do not understand. I have no money at all. I cannot pay this fine, so I wish to have it waived. Apparently, it was not a perfect world. There was an awkward moment of silence. Jerry's eyes darted in various directions as he tried to comprehend what he was hearing. Fortunately for him, there was no other returns at the moment, so he had some time to make this exchange uncomfortable. Public relations seminar be damned. "May I make an obvious observation, madam?" Jerry asked. "You are wearing a fur coat worth hundreds of dollars. You have on very extravagant jewelry. And you mean to tell me you have no money to pay the fine for these 3 books, which you deliberately returned late now or any time in the immediate future? Is that what you're telling me?" "I don't know what you're getting at, but I am sure that this is not an unreasonable request," she exclaimed. "I demand that he be honored." His patience had just run out. "Well, I can't honor that request," he barked. "If we waive fines left and right, we would not have no money to buy more of those Daniel Steele and Mary Higgins Clark books you rich upper-crust snobs like to read so much." Jerry noticed he was yelling now. From the corner of his eye, he noticed Sonia coming back from outside at the entrance, and Augustus emerging from his office in the far right corner at the back of the branch. He knew he was in trouble, but he continued his rant. "And without money, we'll only be open for 5 days a week instead of 6, then only 4 days. Next thing you know, common day folks like me get laid off due to budget cuts, followed by other lame excuses. So, Miss Wave the Fine, are you going to pay this $2.25, or am I going to lose my job? Coltrane!" Sonia's voice echoed throughout the open floor as she stood at the checkout side on the left. All eyes turned to the desk where the 2 clerks and patrons stood. Embarrassed, the woman pulled out a crumpled $10 bill from her purse. "Keep the change," she hurried past Sonia on her way out to the exit. "Thank you very much for the charitable donation," he called back to her. "Have a nice day." He turned back to see Augustus glaring back at him for a moment and then disappeared back into his office. Sonia walked around to stand right next to him, also glaring. "What the hell was that?" she hissed. "A cheap ass getting what she deserved," he replied. Very fun scene indeed. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, and follow me on the social medias. Keep watching for more videos. Peace is the mission.